Something is spreading across social media right now that is genuinely worrying me. A piece of information about Australian night driving rules has gone viral, and it is wrong. Not slightly wrong, not open to interpretation, factually, dangerously wrong. And the problem is, it's being shared by real drivers in real Australian driving groups with thousands of likes and comments saying things like, "I had no idea," and "This changes everything." It does change everything, but not in the way those people think. Because if you drive based on what that viral post is claiming, you could fail your license test, get handed a fine you didn't see coming, or worse, make a decision on a dark road at night that puts you and everyone around you at serious risk. So before you scroll past this, understand what's at stake here. Stay with me, because in this video, I'm going to tell you exactly what the viral claim says, exactly why it's wrong, and exactly what Australian night driving rules actually are. Updated, accurate, and explained in plain language. This might be the most important video you watch this week. Welcome to AU Driving Insider, the channel committed to giving Australian drivers real, accurate, verified information about the rules, the roads, and everything in between. If you're not subscribed yet, do it now, because content like this is exactly why this channel exists. Let's get into it. First, let's talk about why viral driving misinformation is such a specific and serious problem. When false health information spreads online, people can fact-check it against doctors, hospitals, government websites. When false financial advice spreads, people can verify it with their bank or a financial advisor. But when false driving rule information spreads, most people have no idea where to go to verify it. They assume that if it's been shared thousands of times, if it sounds official, if it uses the right terminology, it must be accurate. And that assumption is exactly how dangerous misinformation survives and spreads. Driving rules feel authoritative. They feel like the kind of thing that wouldn't be posted unless someone checked. And so people absorb them, believe them, and start acting on them, without ever realizing they've been given completely wrong information. The viral post doing the rounds right now, and I'm not going to name the specific account or platform because I don't want to give it more oxygen, makes a specific claim about when Australian drivers are legally required to use their headlights at night. It states a particular time-based rule as if it's a universal national standard. It uses confident language. It even references what sounds like a regulatory body. And it is wrong in a way that varies by state, creates confusion about learner-driver obligations, and misrepresents what the actual Australian road rules say about visibility and lighting conditions. I'll break all of that down in detail in just a moment, but first I want to give you the bigger picture, because understanding the structure of Australian road rules is actually the key to never being misled by viral posts like this again. Here is something most Australian drivers don't know. There is no single national road rules document that applies identically in every state and territory. What we have is the Australian Road Rules, a national model framework developed by the National Transport Commission. This framework is designed to create consistency across the country. But, and this is crucial, each state and territory adopts and implements those rules individually, which means the actual enforceable law in New South Wales is the NSW Road Rules. In Victoria, it's the Victorian Road Safety Road Rules. In Queensland, it's the Queensland Road Rules. And while these are largely consistent with each other, there are differences. There are variations in how rules are worded, how they're enforced, and in some cases, what they actually require. This is the exact reason why a viral post that states a single rule as if it applies to every driver in every corner of Australia is almost always going to be misleading at best and dangerously wrong at worst. So when someone shares a post saying, "Australian law says you must turn your headlights on at this specific time," the first question any informed driver should ask is, which Australian law? Which state? Which version of the rules? Because the answer genuinely might be different depending on where you are. Now, let's get into what the rules actually say about night driving and headlights. And I want to be genuinely thorough here, because at AU Driving Insider, we don't do surface-level summaries. We give you the real information. The Australian road rules, the national framework, state that a driver must turn on headlights when driving at night. Night, in this context, is defined as the period between sunset and sunrise. That sounds simple and clear, and for the most part, it is. But here's where it gets more nuanced. The rules also require headlights to be used during the day when visibility is reduced to the point where a driver cannot clearly see a person or vehicle at a distance of 100 meters ahead. This is the daytime visibility clause, and it's the part that most viral posts completely ignore, or worse, get completely wrong. What this means in practice is that headlights are not purely a nighttime obligation in Australia. They are a visibility obligation. If you are driving through heavy rain, thick fog, smoke from a bushfire, or any other condition that reduces your ability to see 100 meters ahead, you are legally required to have your headlights on, regardless of what time of day it is. This is not a suggestion. It's not a recommendation. It is a legal requirement under the Australian Road Rules framework, adopted across all states and territories. And the reason it matters so much is because the viral post specifically frames headlight use as a time-based rule and completely ignores this visibility-based obligation, which is actually the more commonly relevant one in Australian driving conditions, particularly in regional areas, coastal regions prone to fog, and inland areas affected by dust. Let me give you a real-world scenario that brings this to life. Imagine you're driving on the Pacific Highway in northern New South Wales on a summer afternoon. It's 3 p.m., so by the time-based framing of that viral post, headlights are apparently optional. But there's a thick band of coastal fog rolling in from the ocean, and visibility ahead of you has dropped to around 60 or 70 meters. Under Australian road rules, you are legally required to have your headlights on right now. Not your parking lights, not your daytime running lights if your car has them, your headlights, full, proper headlights. And if you're driving without them because a viral social media post told you headlights are only required after a certain time, you are breaking the law, and more importantly, you are creating a genuine safety hazard for yourself and every other driver on that road. Now, let's talk about the learner driver specific implications of this, because this is where the viral misinformation causes some of its worst damage. Learner drivers in Australia are already navigating one of the most complex graduated licensing systems in the world. The requirements differ between states. The logbook hours differ, the night driving hour requirements differ, and the rules around what supervisors must do differ. When a learner driver, or their supervising parent, encounters a viral post that confidently states an incorrect rule about night driving and takes it as fact, the consequences can include failing a driving assessment for not following correct procedure, losing logbook hours that don't meet the actual requirements, or developing habits that will later result in fines when they're driving unsupervised. In New South Wales, for example, learner drivers must complete a minimum number of night driving hours as part of their 120-hour logbook requirement. Night is specifically defined, the hours must be logged correctly, and the supervising driver must ensure that proper lighting procedure is followed throughout. If a learner has absorbed incorrect information about when headlights are required, their night driving sessions may not reflect best practice, and their examiner will notice. In Victoria, the requirements around night driving for learners are slightly different again. This is exactly why state-specific, verified information matters, and why a single viral post claiming to speak for all of Australia is inherently suspect. Here's another layer to this that I think is genuinely underappreciated. The transition from dusk to dark is not a single moment. It's a gradual process that varies enormously depending on your location in Australia, the time of year, and local weather conditions. In far north Queensland, the sun can drop below the horizon in under 15 minutes, and visibility can fall rapidly. In southern Victoria during winter, you can have a long, slow twilight where the light is technically declining for almost an hour before it feels genuinely dark. The rule about driving at night starting at sunset is a legal definition, but the practical reality is that responsible drivers don't wait until the legal threshold to turn their lights on. They turn them on when conditions warrant it, which, in many cases, is well before the legal requirement kicks in. This is actually a principle that driving instructors across Australia consistently emphasize, and one that experienced drivers develop naturally over time. Your headlights are not just for your own visibility, they are for other drivers' ability to see you. During low light conditions, that transitional dusk period, overcast days, rainy afternoons, and foggy mornings, your car can be genuinely difficult for other drivers to spot without your lights on. Turning your headlights on earlier than the law strictly requires costs you nothing. Not turning them on when conditions have reduced visibility costs you potentially everything. Let me also address the specific claim in the viral post about high beams, because this is another area where the misinformation gets genuinely dangerous. Australian road rules are very clear on high beam use. You must not use high beams when you are within 200 meters of an oncoming vehicle. You must not use high beams when you are within 200 meters of a vehicle you are following. These are hard legal limits, not guidelines. And the reason they matter so much is that high beam light directed into the eyes of an oncoming driver can cause temporary but complete loss of vision, what's commonly called being blinded by headlights. At highway speeds, even a 1 or 2 second period of visual impairment can be catastrophic. What the viral post gets wrong about high beams is that it implies a more permissive standard than what actually exists under the road rules. Some versions of the post suggest that high beams are acceptable in certain conditions even when other vehicles are present, which is absolutely not the case. When another vehicle is within 200 meters, approaching or being followed, you switch to low beam, full stop. No exceptions based on road type, speed, or visibility conditions. The rule is clear, it's consistent across Australian states, and it exists because the research on glare-induced accidents is unambiguous. Now let's talk about what you should actually do when you encounter a viral driving rules post, because this won't be the last one, and the framework for evaluating these posts is something every Australian driver should have. First question, does the post cite a specific source? Not just Australian law, a specific piece of legislation, a specific road rules document, a specific state authority? If the answer is no, treat the post with immediate skepticism. Real road rules have specific citations. Second question, does the post acknowledge that rules vary by state? If a post presents a single rule as universally applicable to all of Australia without acknowledging state variation, it is almost certainly oversimplifying at best. Third question, can you verify it in under 2 minutes? Because you can. Every state and territory road authority has a publicly accessible website with the actual road rules. Roads and Maritime Services in NSW, Vic Roads in Victoria, Transport and Main Roads in Queensland, the Department of Infrastructure, Planning and Logistics in the Northern Territory. These are primary sources. They are free, they are accurate. If a viral post says something different from what you find there, believe the government website, not the social media post. At AU Driving Insider, this is the standard we hold ourselves to. Every piece of driving information we share on this channel is checked against primary sources before it goes on camera. We don't repeat viral claims. We don't share information because it sounds right. We verify, we source, and we explain, because the stakes on Australian roads are too high to do anything less. That's our commitment to you, and it's why thousands of Australian drivers trust this channel for their road rule information. Let's bring this back to the specific topic at the center of this whole conversation, night driving, and make sure you leave this video with a completely clear picture of what's actually required of you. You must use headlights between sunset and sunrise. That is the baseline night driving rule across all Australian states under the road rules framework. You must also use headlights during the day whenever visibility is reduced to the point where you cannot clearly see a person or vehicle 100 meters ahead. Heavy rain, fog, smoke, dust, any condition that compromises that 100-meter visibility standard. You must use low beam within 200 meters of an oncoming vehicle or a vehicle you're following. You must not drive with only parking lights active as a substitute for headlights at night. Parking lights are not a legal substitute for headlights in night driving conditions. And, as a matter of responsible driving practice, rather than strict legal requirement, turn your headlights on during the transitional dusk period even before the legal sunset threshold, because your visibility and your visibility to others both benefit from it. These are the real rules, not the viral version, not the simplified, shares well, sounds official version. The actual rules, drawn from the actual framework that Australian road authorities operate under. If you've been driving with the wrong understanding because of what you saw shared online, that's not your fault. The post looked credible. It was presented with confidence. That's how misinformation works, and it catches smart, careful people all the time. What matters now is that you have the correct information and that the next time you see something similar shared in a driving group or a community forum, you know exactly how to evaluate it. One final thought before the outro. The fact that you're watching a video like this one tells me something important about you. You care about getting it right. You're not content with just assuming you know the rules, you're actively looking for accurate information. That instinct is genuinely rare, and it makes you a safer driver than the majority of people on Australian roads right now. Keep that standard. Verify before you share. Check primary sources, and bring that same critical thinking to every piece of driving information you encounter online. That is everything for today. If this video helped you cut through the noise and get to the real information, please hit the like button. It genuinely helps AU Driving Insider reach more Australian drivers who need accurate content like this. Drop a comment below and tell me, have you seen this viral post? Did you believe it before watching this video? And is there another driving rule you've seen shared online that you're not sure about? Tell me in the comments, and I'll investigate it for an upcoming video. Subscribe if you haven't already. We are here every week with real, verified, no-nonsense Australian driving knowledge. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload. And until next time, drive safe, drive informed, and don't believe everything you read on the internet.